At an airport in Northern California, a relic from the Second World War flies in for a visit. This Boeing Corporation B-17 Flying Fortress bomber is one of about 10 in existence that are still operational. Its appearance this day is for flying excursions and tours inside the aircraft by local visitors. The B-17 model here was the final and most advanced version of the bomber. It carried 13 .50 caliber machine guns mounted at several locations on the plane. The bristling array of defensive weapons gave the plane its name, the Flying Fortress. This bomber, named the Aluminum Overcast, has been restored even up to its female mascot. At today's exhibition, a small but appreciative crowd has shown up for plane rides and an inside look. A closer look at the B-17 reveals how much weaponry it had to protect itself from the German fighter planes sent to attack it. The Flying Fortress had its machine guns positioned for all possible angles of attack. Several of the visitors present are war veterans. But there are few young people here, and no school field trips have come out to see the B-17. An exploration through the inside of the plane reveals tight and confined spaces for its crew. During their bombing missions, the crew members had to wear flight suits. Temperatures could drop to as low as 60 degrees below zero. The Fortress did not offer heavily armored protection for its crew, but it could absorb tremendous amounts of punishment in air combat. These were the conditions that this air war was fought in. Some are wondering how we can today pass on this knowledge of our history. A nearby parking lot offers a clue. 2 motorcyclists are present for the day's event. One rode in on a Harley-Davidson Sportster, and the other on a Honda VTX. Both of these cruiser bikes were assembled in American factories. The Harley was built in Pennsylvania and the Honda in Ohio. The end of World War II gave us a world in which America and its allies were victorious over the Axis powers. It ushered in an era of tremendous economic and technological progress. The world we live in now was largely created by the outcome of that conflict. Some war veterans have posed the question, who will carry the torch to remind us of the sacrifices that were made by American servicemen and women to secure our freedom? Who will honor those who went to fight when America summoned them? There is a clearly defined segment of our population that cares about these issues. And we will see here just how much they care. An exhibit at a California museum showcases the progression of motorcycle development. The early motorcycles in this display were the next generation up from the bicycles with gasoline engines that motorcycles began as. Motorcycling appealed to many people who needed a basic vehicle. Motorcycle racing and touring became laboratories for improvements and advances in power, utility, and design. The Excelsior Company began building motorcycles in Chicago in 1907. The year of this model, 1912, was also the first year this brand was officially clocked at 100 miles per hour. The Merkel Company was famous for its innovative and reliable models. Merkel's also saw a lot of time at motorcycle board racetracks. The Indian Racer, with its 61 cubic inch engine, put Indian at the top of the performance charts in 1912 on both sides of the Atlantic. This bike held every American speed and distance record on the books by 1911. This 1915 Harley-Davidson 11F Twin sported a 3-speed transmission, an automatic oil pump, a newly designed muffler, and an engine that claimed 29 refinements over the previous year.
Pretty much all of the motorcycles on display are from local collectors, so generally from the greater Sacramento area. There are some from local shops or other types of sources like that, but generally local private owners. Attendance has been amazing. We have seen so many people coming through here with their motorcycle jackets on or Harley shirts. You can almost always identify the person that's come just for the motorcycle exhibit. But there's a lot of people who have come in addition than those other motorcycle people, family, high school kids who hear about the motorcycles and really want to come for this. So we have seen a bump in attendance. There are lots of board tracks here in California. We had the most tracks than any other state in the country. The very first one was actually built in Los Angeles, so it's a really rich part of California history, mostly because of the weather, but also because that motorcycles were already popular here, and we're lucky enough to have an early board track racer here in this exhibit. The exhibit has definitely been a boost for attendance. We have seen people come in from all walks of life, coming to see these motorcycles, and some of them are very clearly motorcycle fans with their vests or Harley shirts or things like that.
At the dawn of the 20th century, America's roads were largely an unorganized array of wagon trails and urban routes. The vast majority of them were unpaved. By the end of the first decade, beginning from 1900, numerous highway associations had begun to advocate various cross-country routes. This would benefit local economies and hopefully encourage state governments to help improve road quality. Several of these seminal roads became the basis for our present-day system of American highways. One of these, the Old Spanish Trail Association, began work on a coast-to-coast southern route from Florida to California in 1915. They distributed a completed road map in 1929. But there was one more highway which had even greater fame due to its excellent publicity campaign. It was begun in 1913 by an entrepreneur named Carl Fisher. It was named the Lincoln Highway. It became America's first coast-to-coast road by crossing directly through the nation's midsection. In 1916, the Lincoln Highway acted as a proving ground for motorcycle riding and touring by two ambitious young women. 24-year-old Augusta and 22-year-old Adeline Van Buren left on July 4th that year from Brooklyn on two 1000cc Indian Power Plus motorcycles. The two riders endured poor roads, heavy rains, thick mud, and arrests for wearing men's clothing. They set out to prove that women could ride as well as men and possibly serve as military dispatch riders in wartime. Their accomplishment is recognized even in the present day. 3 years later, in 1919, a military convoy was sent across America on the Lincoln Highway, taking a full 62 days and covering 3,242 miles. The military intended it to prove the capabilities of their transport corps. Their journey was extremely rigorous and fraught with even more perils than the Van Buren sisters' motorcycle trip. There was a tank officer who had volunteered for the trip because of the adventure it offered. Instead, the poor condition of the Lincoln Highway indelibly impressed upon him the need for better roads in our nation. Fortunately, the wide consensus for better American roads brought about the Federal Aid Road Act of 1916, signed by President Warren G. Harding. The act allowed states to plan and design new highways from existing dirt roads, subject to federal approval. Later, President Calvin Coolidge signed the Federal Highway Act of 1921. This legislation created a multi-year funding plan to the states to create America's first interconnected highway system. The new federal highways used a standardized numerical system for its roads based upon their location and direction. The result of this endeavor was that nearly 100,000 miles of highways were approved for construction in 1925. Many of these roads from the Federal Highway Act can still be ridden today. Highway 1, Highway 20, Highway 50, Highway 60, the famous Route 66, Old Highway 99, and US 101. The old named roads are still recoverable today thanks to various road associations' historical and detective work. The Lincoln Highway had one final boost before its decommissioning. This was done by groups of Boy Scouts placing concrete road markers along the entire roadway in 1928. 3,000 of these concrete markers were placed by the Boy Scouts. Most of them have not survived. Motorcycling began to take off with better bikes to ride on higher quality roads. Harley-Davidson's top-selling model from the 1920s was the J-Series. This motorcycle was the final year of that series, featuring an added front brake and a 1,212cc engine capable of 85 miles per hour. By the 1930s, motorcycles were reaching a more advanced stage of design, which allowed for greater travel. The sturdy components, larger gas tank, and improved suspension of this 1934 Harley-Davidson all contributed to a better touring experience. The 1935 Ariel Red Hunter was one of a long line of British imports that continues today. This bike saw racing tracks in the 1950s. This 1939 Indian Sport Scout is a generation of motorcycles widely considered to be the most successful model line ever. It saw upgrades with stronger suspension, better carburetors, and alloy cylinder heads. By 1940, the federal highway programs had given America its first interstate system, a road project unlike any before it. Harley-Davidson created the XA Army motorcycle by reverse engineering a German BMW that was superior in its design. Military motorcycles had seen a significant role in World War I for message dispatch and quick transport duties. The model shown here was intended for the North African campaign in World War II, and many soldiers had been readied for duty in combat motorcycle platoons. But a majority of these wartime motorcycle orders went unused when the Army Jeep replaced them. As a result, most of them went to surplus military hardware. There they were later bought as cheap post-war bikes by riders who wanted to get back on the open road. These, and the bikes from the decade of the 1930s, provided the basis for the mini clubs that sprang up during the post-war era. In the 1940s, motorcycles continued their advances in design, engineering, and performance. First introduced in 1936, the Harley-Davidson Model EL, also known as the Knucklehead from its engine rocker boxes, is shown here in a 1947 version. The powerful overhead valve V-twin motor was maturing into a staple of the post-war cruiser, and it now had a 4-speed transmission. In 1948, Indian added the single-cylinder Arrow to its Scout and Chief lineup. It had styling cues such as a teardrop tank, a distinctive engine design, and telescopic forks. This Arrow also had the traditional Indian red paint of its day. The Indian Chief was the one model that the company continued into the post-war era before its 1953 bankruptcy. Its full-skirted trademark fenders first appeared in 1940, and the engine was a full 80 cubic inches. Early attempts by makers to manufacture a 4-cylinder motorcycle engine met with failure due to oversized blocks and cooling issues. This 1951 Ariel had an efficient and compact 4-cylinder engine, but it sold poorly due to its high cost. This 1951 Vincent Rapide came from a British company noted for its high-quality engineering and manufacturing. The engine, gearbox, and casing were enclosed in one casting in an early example of unit construction. But our nation was in for yet another major change in its roads. The young soldier who had endured a miserable trip across America in 1919 became our president in 1953. Dwight D. Eisenhower signed into law the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956, which created a 41,000-mile system of interstate highways without intersections or traffic signals. Eisenhower's mandate was based upon the German Autobahn's sweeping, non-stop roads, allowing fast transit for American civilians and military if needed. At its completion, the freeways built totaled over 46,000 miles. Today, our country has approximately 2,678,000 miles of paved roads. Meanwhile, Harley-Davidson continued to win Class C motorcycle races with bikes like this 1957 KR750. With Harley-Davidson's debut of the Duo Glide, motorcycling saw a major upgrade to the design of touring bikes. The Duo had a smooth modern swing arm for its rear suspension, loads of chrome, hard bags, and a triple lamp headlight. Heavyweight touring rigs were coming of age, and this one tipped the scales at 600 pounds. The state of motorcycling took a turn into another classic mode with the creation of the Triumph Bonneville, another British success story. This popular high-performance bike sold well in America and has been revived again as of 2016. By the 1960s, American motorcycle sales had taken a dramatic turn. Starting with the 1962 Honda ad campaign, sales in the USA outstripped all previous years. The event marked the beginning of the decline of domestic and British motorcycle brands in the US market and the rise of Honda and other Japanese companies. In 1945, there were 198,000 registered motorcycles in the United States. By 1955, it had increased to 450,000. In 1962, at the start of the Honda ad campaign, the number grew to 646,000. By 1965, it had doubled to 1.4 million motorcycles. The groundbreaking model of the 1960s motorcycle explosion in the U.S. was the imported Honda Super Cub, a 49cc scooter. Carly talks about the Honda Super Cub.
Yeah, this Honda Super Cub is only 50 cc's and it may look like a scooter, but it really is a motorcycle. And this was one of the first Hondas to come to the United States and California. And it really changed the way that people looked at Honda motorcycles. You ever hear the advertising campaign, you meet the nicest people on a Honda? Well, it was about this, not the Honda Dream or other motorcycles that it also later covered. It was first about this one here. And it was just super accessible, super easy to use, and just completely destroyed the idea of intimidating motorcycles. Harley, other companies actually started to imitate this as well and come out with similar types of motorcycles. But it was just something that was cute, friendly, even this type of facade with the plastic and everything just really made it a much more approachable type of motorcycle. The Honda Cub is actually still in production today, and it is the top-selling motor vehicle of all time. It's more popular in places in Asia and things like that today, but you still can buy it in the United States. But it was extremely popular in the 60s here in the United States.
The 1960s also brought about the popularity of mini bikes like this 1969 Honda Mini Trail.
This bike here is a 1964 Honda Dream 250. Honda Dreams were really first made in Japan in the 50s. 1959, they kind of started to come to California and in the early 60s. But this early to mid 60s is really when they started to take off. This was a bike that was accessible to people. People weren't intimidated by it. In the 50s, you mostly have this outlaw culture that was really taking over the representation, whether they deserved it or not, in many cases, of what motorcycling was all about. But Honda comes in the 1960s and changes all of that. It's an easy to use, not too big, not too small, kind of just right Goldilocks bike that people weren't afraid of anymore. And this really led to the impact of changing of the motorcycle culture, and it started here in California, and the impact of Japanese bikes in motorcycling culture.
The 1973 Moto Guzzi Eldorado 850 was designed to make a good police motorcycle. This model was supplied courtesy of the California Highway Patrol Museum, and the torque-heavy Italian bike could quickly make 105 miles per hour. In the 1970s, motorcycles grew faster and more versatile. This 1974 Bultaco Sherpa became a racing favorite, winning 8 world championships that same decade. In 1969, Honda introduced the revolutionary 4-cylinder 754 motorcycle, an entry previously unseen in the world of road bikes. This high-performance machine borrowed from Honda's previous Grand Prix racing knowledge base and was the company's first truly big bike entry into the American market. It was an immediate smash hit, and Honda quickly found itself deluged with orders. Even today, almost 50 years after its debut, the 754 has plenty of admirers. A scaled-back and more nimble response to the Honda Goldwing touring bike was the Silverwing. The Silverwing offered hydraulic brakes, a V-twin engine, a 4.5-gallon tank, and hard luggage for long trips. Serious motorcycle touring had come of age in America, with good roads to ride all over the country and loads of great destinations to ride to. America in 1965 had 1.4 million registered motorcycles. That number doubled again in 1970 to 2.8 million. By 1975, there were 5 million bikes on the road. A motorcycling resurgence appeared in all categories in the 1980s and 90s. By the year 2014, there were over 8.4 million privately registered motorcycles in the U.S. Motorcycles now are more numerous than ever, and riders today have innumerable rallies, rides, and bike events to attend every year. Today, the modern motorcycle rally is a biker gathering replicated in cities all across the American landscape. Bikers both near and far ride in to see bike shows, go on special regional rides, check out the vendors, and have fun with their fellow riders. The Laughlin River Run in Nevada is a major draw with plenty of outlying attractions, along with the in-town hotels and casinos. Touring motorcycles, also known as baggers, are a common sight among the riders. Most of them are Harley-Davidson models. Often a rally goer has ridden in from another state to attend an event like this one. Set beside the beautiful Colorado River, the Laughlin Rally offers a top-notch getaway for riders seeking both excitement and scenery. The hotel strip at Water's Edge makes a relaxing environment for visitors. One of the recent success stories in motorcycle production has been the recovery of the Indian Motorcycle Company. Restarted after years of name migration and foreign bike rebranding following its 1953 collapse, the Indian company began to once again roll out American-made bikes at its Gilroy factory in California in 1999. The Gilroy operation went bankrupt in 2003, after which the rights to Indian were bought by Stellacan Corporation in 2006, and then finally by Polaris Industries in 2011. Polaris has recently discontinued its Victory line of motorcycles in order to focus upon its Indian brand exclusively. Here in Laughlin, a demo ride tent is run and a sales booth for bikes and accessories. We spoke with Quinn, the Indian sales rep for the River Run.
We currently are involved in over 10 Indian motorcycle dealerships across the United States. This weekend here at the River Run in Laughlin, we're supporting the 5 local dealerships between Tucson, Chandler, and Peoria, Arizona, Sin City, and Las Vegas, Nevada. When Indian came back, our other stores are involved with Polaris Motorsports, so it was a natural fit for us to get involved with Indian Motorcycle. We have them in multiple locations, and it's a great band. It's a great support. We really enjoy working with Polaris Industries and Indian Motorcycle and the return of Indian Motorcycle. Well, it was a generation where it was after the war effort. You know, Indian was very involved in the war effort, and when the war was over, they didn't have the product to serve the GIs, and so that is where the other companies actually grew. You look at some of the European companies, they grew very large because they were able to handle the support and the need for motorcycles at that time, and Indian could never catch up. Therefore, the dissolve of Indian in 1953, the other companies continued to strive. Indian has had its hiccups over the years. We re-backed up, we're supported, we're back on the road, multiple different products available. And that started in 2011 with the purchase from Polaris Industries, re-engineered, redesigned from the ground up. It's just a beautiful motorcycle. We hope you get to see some of those throughout this interview. We're just excited to be working with them, and we're glad that they're back. The Gilroy Indian was basically from 1999 to 2003. I don't know specifics of their lawsuits and things of that nature. They produced a very unique motorcycle. It had some situation and some issues. The neatest thing about now with the new production of the Indian motorcycles currently is when we see those bikes out there on the road, we're proud to invite them in. What Indian Motorcycle has done is made a better motorcycle company for all companies, including the others that are now stepping up their game to keep up with the advances that we're making in Indian Motorcycle. I think that they've done a great job of bringing the motorcycle into the century that we're in. I think that we're here, we're showing the technology advancements on the motorcycle as well as the safety. And then you look at the coloration and the options that are available on the motorcycles. They're driven by the consumer requests. And Polaris Industries has done a very good job, and Indian Motorcycle has done a great job to make sure that the consumers are getting their wish in designing these motorcycles for their needs.
Most major rallies have a custom bike show, and Laughlin is no exception. The bikes on display here range from stock models with some dress-up added on, all the way up to extreme makeovers in paint, fenders, spokes, chrome, and tailpipes. Most of the custom rides you'll see are Harleys, but occasionally a Japanese bike finds its way into the show. All of them are the result of careful planning and execution. The results demand a large array of accessories and reworkings by customizers. Modern American motorcycling is facing a timeline unique to the sport, one that has seen massive expansion in the decades just past. It will face a gradual extinction in future years if riding is not picked up by a new generation of bikers. The demographic of motorcyclists is aging at an alarming rate for manufacturers. The median age of a rider in 2017 was 47 years, compared with 32 years in 1990. Also, older riders simply are not buying the newer models as they once did. This resultant loss of sales has been a huge red flag for the 8 manufacturers that comprised 81% of American bikes sold in 2015. In the top 4 was Harley-Davidson at 29.3%. Next was Honda at 14%, then Yamaha at 13%. Indian and Victory bikes made up a modest 4.4% of 2015 sales, even though Indian's overall growth was strong. Kawasaki, KTM, Suzuki, and BMW comprised the final 4 of those 8 top producers. Women who own and ride a motorcycle now make up about 14% of the total picture, another indicator of a shifting U.S. rider demographic. With American large motorcycle registrations down almost 7% in the first half of 2017 and Harley sales down 40% in the third quarter of the same year, the cultivation of new riders and markets will be key to the industry's long-term survival. The migration of image appeal will likewise aim for a different vibe when targeting millennial buyers. At least one analyst has suggested that the flagship site for these new riders will not be Sturgis, but Coachella. Nighttime and relative quiet comes to Laughlin, and the bikes are mostly parked while riders dine, party, and gamble at the casinos. The River Run has not seen the incidence of violence between rival biker clubs as it did in 2002, after which the rally instituted a strict no colors rule. This means that no one can show up at the River Run wearing a motorcycle club patch on their jacket or vest. The patch must be left at home or the garment be turned inside out while the rider is at the rally. Cycle Gear, a national motorcycle accessories and apparel retailer, holds its monthly bike night in Pittsburg, California. Located in Contra Costa County, northeast of San Francisco, Pittsburg is an ethnically diverse community of 63,000 residents. The riders present for the bike night event reflect the population's makeup. Attendance includes sport riders as well as patched motorcycle club members. The store is run by EJ, who we interviewed that evening, along with some other riders.
Currently, I'm the store manager of the Cycle Gear in Pittsburg, California. I do ride with the Warriors Watch Riders. It's a military support organization. We do a lot of welcome homes for military veterans and their families whenever people are returning home from overseas, whenever a loved one passes that was a military member or anything like that. We do a lot of the escorts for them, make sure they get to where they're going. So basically, it's invite only. We don't show up unless if the family does invite us because we don't want to impose or intrude if it's not wanted or needed by the family. But for us, if a loved one passes or if a loved one is coming home from overseas, just by word of mouth, they'll hear about our group. They get onto the website. It's norcalwwr.org. They get on there, fill out the information of what type of event it is, and then it goes out to our coordinators from there. We basically put it all over all of our websites and our Facebook pages and all that, and other social media avenues that we have, and basically just organize a big event. We show up, we pick up the family from the airport or at the funeral home, and we escort them all the way in. In the past couple of years, I would probably say at least 100 plus missions of various types. It's actually kind of all the above, because all different branches in the military are deploying to different places overseas and across the pond itself. So it's really a pretty good mix of men, women, all different branches, all different jobs. It's all different age groups. It's kind of all the above. But we do have a lot of the vets, because a lot of them, have a lot of the Vietnam era veterans that they felt what it was like to not be appreciated when they come home, and they don't want that on the next generation or the generation after. They don't want them to feel that way. So they come out and they really make sure that that generation doesn't feel that way. A lot of that has to do with the fact that motorcycle riding in general has picked up, and there's a lot of people that they want something to go do, and they like to ride, so they're happy with riding in general, but they want more of a reason to go ride and more of a purpose to go ride, and that's something that my group really provides. It's really a rewarding experience. The first time you escort somebody, whether it's a loved one of a deceased veteran or it's somebody that just came home from overseas and just spent 6 months to a year away from their family and friends, and they were scared for 6 months to a year. Once we provide that comfort for them, it's pretty rewarding. So it really gives that chance for somebody to have that really good purpose to ride and feel like they're doing something while they're riding.
I was a Vietnam vet from 1967 through 68. Yeah, I got blown up about 10 days before I was supposed to come home. It took me a long time to learn how to walk again, but with the help with the VA, I succeeded. During the Tet Offensive in Vietnam, during the 1968 Tet Offensive, I got hit. I was sleeping in a room and a rocket hit above me, blew me out of bed. Lucky I went with the blast and I didn't get hit with it. I got an honorable discharge after my tour of 2 years. I collapsed later. The injury really didn't take effect for a while. I've seen lots of positive things that I hoped would happen, that I always thought would happen, and has happened. A lot of things. When I came home, they spit at us and threw rocks at us. Now our vets don't have to go through that, which I'm proud of. I'm also a member of the DAV. I'm a disabled vet, 100%, and I give to the Wounded Warrior Project, which I hope everybody will do. Support our wounded warriors and their families. It's hard on our families. I walk out of places and people will come out and chase me down and shake my hand and thank me for my service. It's gratifying that finally, after all these years, 40 years later, they're recognizing us. But I hope people start coming together more, especially now with the technology that we have, that we see people in Louisiana, we see people that happened in Italy last week. Everybody's getting earthquakes and there's disasters everywhere, and people are reaching out. That's one thing about humanity that I found, that when we're down, no matter what we think of somebody else, we all pull together. The Sons of Thunder, the religious group, once in a while I ride with military people, and I ride with my cousins and my family, and I'll ride with anybody, and I don't care what you ride. I don't care if you have to pedal a bicycle. If you're on two wheels, come on. It's grown to such a community. I mean, when I started out, it was like you'd ride by and people would look at you like you were scum. Now, when you ride by, they don't know if you're a doctor, a lawyer, or an Indian chief. Everybody's accepted, and it's a great thing.
I make handcrafted exhaust systems for Harley-Davidson motorcycles. Given the vast amount of Harley-Davidsons and Victory and Indian motorcycles out there, I think there's enough there that we can focus on. The styles of exhaust systems that we make kind of lend themselves to that style of cruiser. So our fabrication is all done here in Pittsburgh, all done by me. Actually, we don't do any chrome plating. The brand really is focused towards kind of the performance market. And so what we do is we offer brushed stainless steel exhaust systems. That's been the trend lately with Harley-Davidsons, is that people are more performance oriented. It's less about the chrome and skulls, and it's more about the performance side of things, especially with the touring motorcycles. It's just been incredible. It's been a great ride, been incredibly busy. I actually left my day job to pursue this full time because I started on the car side back in high school. We were making car headers, and exhaust theory is pretty much the same. With motorcycles, it's just 2 cylinders as opposed to 4, 6, or 8.
My specialty is I do motocross. I do motocross in Livermore, San Jose, Turlock, and Marysville. I am 13. I've been doing motocross for about 2 years now. I got started when I was little, like 3 or 4, and my dad got me into the sport, and now I'm stuck in. I have a KX100. I started on a trail bike on a track, and so now I'm on a race bike, and it's a lot better and a lot faster. For me, I do Super Mini, Super Mini 1, Super Mini 2, and Open. My next category up would be 125s. Hopefully still be racing and maybe be pro, because that's what I want to do. 16 to 18. I usually retire about 30. Some go after 30, but most of them 30. My next race is going to be Triple Crown or the Fall Series. And they're going to take place in Prairie City and Sacramento, Turlock, and Dixon, Argyle.
Local informal events such as Bike Night give riders a chance to socialize and maintain their connections to one another, a major benefit of the sport of motorcycling. The sense of community among riders is one that transcends other social borders you'll find in our culture. Everyone here loves to ride and travel to places on their bike. That in itself creates a shared experience which brings common ground to otherwise more disparate segments of our culture. We paid a visit to Fab 28 Industries, the Pittsburgh-based company owned by Jay, whom we saw at Bike Night. Jay makes custom exhaust pipes for motorcycles, primarily Harley-Davidsons.
We're in the middle of a production run. These are for Dynas, which is actually our most popular model. Unlike other manufacturers that do these handcrafted exhaust systems, we actually do small batch production runs so that customers don't have to wait so long before they receive their exhaust system. These exhaust systems are actually for the brand new Harley-Davidson Milwaukee 8. Harley introduced this new motor in their touring motorcycles this year, and actually this has been a big hit. I think we're the first ones in the market to offer a full exhaust system for the Milwaukee 8. This is actually the new Milwaukee 8 street road glide, actually. Again, this is the first year that Harley's introduced a new motor in quite a while. We're actually catching this in the middle of the development phase. So the original pipe that I showed you earlier is for the smaller displacement motor. This one is for their larger version. So this is a 114. So it requires larger tubing to kind of let it breathe properly. You see that there these fixtures here are what a lot of people call jigs. This is how we can replicate these exhaust systems over and over again with the same result. It's kind of funny because we actually spend more time building these jigs than we do actually designing and building these pipes. These handcrafted exhaust systems, unlike the production ones from the larger guys where they have these sophisticated CNC benders, we actually form our exhaust systems from these U-bends. We cut them to size based on the pipe design, and then we weld them together. I think what we're offering is something a little bit different than what everyone else is doing. We're really positioned as a premium brand, and what we put out there is quality, and I think people recognize it. We're actually expanding our product line to more than just exhaust systems. I'm actually designing
machine parts, which we are slowly releasing over the course of the year. We're primarily targeting Harley owners, Indian owners that have the touring motorcycles. That segment seems to, they don't mind spending the extra money on their motorcycles. They want nice things for their bikes.
The Vegas Bike Fest in Las Vegas, Nevada is a major rally in a national gaming and entertainment mecca. The Bike Fest is held in the historic Fremont Street District and features bands, vendors, custom bikes, and booths offering custom bike upgrades for rally visitors. Crowds coming into the vendor area have a lot to occupy them, with merchant spaces aplenty. Here, as at other rallies, the Bike Fest puts on a street display of custom rides. These range from the homemade custom to the Pro Shop Payday Special. Some of these bikes look questionable for the street, and some truly are an unrideable show creation. Still others are genuine and authentic restorations. The stunt show offers a reprieve from the noise generated by the constant rally traffic, only to be replaced by the roar of stunt riders. This stable of seasoned riders makes it all look easy, but the truth is that few riders have the skill level to execute these kinds of moves. It's better to just watch the show. The Bike Fest gave a ride into the nearby hill country with a return trip poker run going back into town. You only had to make sure to fill up before the ride, which took you up to a cooler elevation, before depositing you back in the middle of Vegas traffic.
I've been doing this for 3 years, almost 4 years now. I've been a manager of all 4 years. There's five total stores here. Fremont Street, 2 down here, and 1 inside the Golden Nugget. I just manage 1 individual store.
It's going good. There's a pretty good turnout here today. We're up there doing mobile dyno tuning on a bunch of bikes, so it's a pretty good event. Oh yeah, so far we have great weather and there's a bunch of good customers out here. This is our 3rd year we've been here. So we mostly do Harleys out here at this event, and we do what's called horsepower and torque pulls just to see the output of the bike. But the main thing we're out here doing is we're doing tuning of the electronic fuel injection system. There's a wide range of different type of fuel or tuners, but we're just out here trying to make the bikes run as good as they can. So we got a bunch of different types of customers with a bunch of different types of tuners, and we just try and do as best as we can.
But oil cools. It's an oil cooling system that's completely different than anything on the market. Up in between the frame rails, under the motorcycle. Fits all Harley models except the Sportster. This is my 1st year. Here, first of all, I'll show you the adapter. It's thermostatically controlled. What that does is either bypass the oil through the engine when it's too cool, and then when it heats up, the thermostat closes off and forces it through the oil cooler. That's going to the oil cooler, which is underneath the bike, up in between the frame rails. So in other words, the frame rails are lower than the cooler itself. That's it there. You know, it's got thousands of fins machined in it, and it works like a heat sink. It's very durable. That's been on for 20,000 miles. There's not even a fin dented over. But I know that cool oil is going to make your engine last a lot longer. A lot of guys have to shut their engine off and stop and go traffic. I never have to do that.
Tex Customs. We're out of Fresno, California. We do LED lighting and air ride suspension. We have a handlebar switch up here on the top that gives you the opportunity to control everything from your hand as you're riding. It brings the bike up with an airbag right here. changes the ride and it gives you a lot more comfortable ride as you go down the road. I'm going to go ahead and let all the air out of it right now. It'll drop down fairly quick. It helps out in a lot of ways. It helps guys that have a hard time reaching the ground. It helps for comfort. It helps your passenger. It's an overall really good experience.
We traveled to another rally for more sights and sounds of the biker world. Pendleton Bike Week is an annual summer rally held in Pendleton, Oregon. It draws riders from all over the Pacific Northwest for a week of spectacular scenery and rider events. New arrivals have come to town and parked at the convention center, displaying their bikes while they check out some of the nearby attractions. Others take off on various rides put on by the rally or go for some sightseeing, returning later for dinner. Pendleton Bike Week is a new rally which began in summer of 2015 with 6,000 riders in attendance. That number increased to about 16,000 in 2016, and Harley-Davidson agreed to sign on as a rally sponsor for 2017. The rally offers regional attractions such as the Columbia River Gorge, the Wild Horse Resort and Casino, and several wineries not far from Pendleton. Riders coming in usually have some kind of a touring rig, as shown in this lineup of trunks and bags. Many riders also have statements to make through their bike. Some are bold, some are beautiful, and others are whimsical and cute. Every bike ends up as a one-off, courtesy of the owner. Reportedly, many riders sought out Pendleton as an alternative to overcrowded rallies elsewhere. It appears that they liked what they saw and came back. The Southern Cruisers Riding Club held their annual gathering at an Indian casino in California, where they took some time to hone their riding skills. A basic cone obstacle course may look easy, but looks can deceive. A larger bike may do better than a small one in some cases.
Our founder, Rick Perry, lives in Memphis, and about 18 years ago he decided that he wanted a little group to ride with, so he called it Southern Cruisers. And so a few people said, yeah, we'd like to join and ride, and before you know it, word got around, and we started popping chapters up all over the country. And now we have 681 chapters, and we have chapters worldwide. We have them all over Europe, Canada, Australia, the Philippines, Korea. That is for St. Jude Children's Hospital. Our president decided years ago that when we pitch all our money in for a party or a birthday bash, whatever, like a meet and greet like this, that he couldn't do anything with the money afterwards, anything left, because it would be income. So he decided to donate it. Well, that started getting bigger and bigger. So now, every year, we have, wherever we have our national rally, we have wonderful members and officers of the different chapters that get together and decide what all to do extra, so we can not only get our little dinner and stuff, but we'll have all this extra money for St. Jude Children's Hospital, and it works. It works well. And for the children of St. Jude, we, as of now, since we started this, we've donated over $2.7 million. And we know that's only a little more than a day's worth, but it's a difference. And it's a difference. And the kids at St. Jude have went from a 15% survival rate since St. Jude started doing all the research and everything to now about 85%. So that's really, really great. It's a good cause. And we love it and we enjoy it.
The Chief Joseph Rally is an event targeted for BMW riders in the town of John Day, Oregon. Most of the riders present are camping at the Grant County Fairgrounds. They will visit nearby sites such as the John Day fossil beds with the surrounding mountain and valley roads that the BMWs can navigate handily. The main pavilion in the fairgrounds makes a convenient spot for Mr. Ed's Moto, an accessory store serving the BMW riding crowd. BMW riders have come in from all points to attend this unique rally, bringing everything from vintage Beamers to state-of-the-art touring and adventure rigs. This variety has helped to make BMW a top choice for both on- and off-road motorcycle exploring. Riders listen to a pre-ride talk before the geology tour. The ride will take them to some places of interest where they can observe the terrain that was created in the John Day area. Here the riding group has parked and dismounted to gather around the event's tour guide. They hear a lecture and survey on the geology of the region surrounding John Day. Following the geology tour, a women's BMW rider discussion group convened back at the fairgrounds. They covered topics such as road safety and touring tips for long journeys. A safety class with Q&A was also held at the fairgrounds. We then spoke with several riders at the BMW rally.
I am, but it's a Honda Goldwing. Because I ride behind my husband, and that's what he has, and we have a trike. Big, big thank you for all they do for our community, and that they're always safe and careful when they come to our community. They're aware of the community, and really take care of the people.
I think I've been coming since about 1995, missed a year here or there. Currently a BMW rider. Currently I have two BMWs, a 1985 K100 RT and a 2001 F650 GS. A huge difference between those two. The K100 is a four-cylinder that's not horizontal. It's an inline four laid latitudinally, so the head's on the left and the crank's on the right. Well, the K100 is a sport touring bike, and the F650 GS is a bit more towards the Geländestrasse, meaning on-road, off-road bikes. You know, I started motorcycling back in high school. Matter of fact, my first motorcycle was a 1949 Harley-Davidson 125. Well, I was too young to actually legally ride it back then, so my first legal bike was a Honda Twin, a CL305 Scrambler. That was a great bike, great bike. I was fighting forest fires in northern Washington, and I had an opportunity to pick up a 1965 R69S. Well, a guy that I knew up there had a couple of BMWs, and it was a motorcycle that was available, and that was even then a pretty cool bike. It wasn't particularly old, because this was 1974, I think. And then I proceeded to ride it from there to Portland. I had dinner with my folks, changed the oil, and took it to Mexico City. That was a very interesting ride. I've always threatened to write that story down. There were some pretty interesting chapters on that story. You know, actually I didn't have any difficulty at all with the Mexicans on that particular trip. That was long enough ago. Yeah, I didn't have any problems of that nature, but I almost ran out of gas in the desert. I did have a bad accident and bent that bike up pretty badly. Ended up dragging it back into the States and fixing it in Scottsdale. Kind of ran out of money on that trip. I was a young guy on a very slim budget. I ended up getting a K100 RT, and I bought my 85 K100 RT in 1991. I'm still riding that same bike.
Oh, secretary, I'm part of the executive committee, so we do all sorts of different things. As ambassador, I try to make sure that we've got lots of rides and other kinds of events to keep the Central Oregon members kind of a cohesive group, keep them interested and having fun. I have a 91 K75S and I have an R1100R. The K75S is smoother ride, and it's a fun bike. It's a lot of fun, but it's a little hard for me to do long distance on that. So the R1100R is a better bike for touring for me. They're both sport touring bikes. I started riding 38 years ago. And actually I started with a moped. That didn't last very long. And I started moped riding just as a matter of economy. I didn't know anybody that rode motorcycles. And it was fun, but I wanted something bigger. So I got myself a Honda 125, a CB 125. Well, that was still too small. So in a very short amount of time, I had a bigger bike, another Honda CB 400. And pretty soon I'm going up and up in bikes, and I love motorcycling. This rally, I first came to the John Day rally in '95. It was the Chief Joseph rally. In 1995, it was up in Hefner. And then consistently here in John Day for the past 4 or 5 years.
My name is Jay Bennett. I'm the president of the club that hosts this rally. I've had it for 4 years. I had it 2 years, took a break, and then came back and did it. This is my second year of that second stint. I have been to this rally since it started, I think about 14, 15 years ago. I've always been a rider. I've been a BMW rider for about 20 years now. I've been riding motorcycles for about 46 years. I had a mini bike, a little Honda mini bike, like a lot of other people. And I went up the succession of Honda motorbikes, and I currently have 4 historic Hondas currently. A Mini Trail 70, a CB 400F, a CBX. I just sold a CB 754, and I've got one other historic Yamaha, 1979 dual sport bike. Like what you're seeing, kind of quiet, sedate, see the equipment, go for rides, see what the latest parts and gadgets are, and see your friends that you see at these various rallies. A lot of times people out here will go apart and then come together at a rally, go apart, come together at a rally. Yeah, we have a lot of seminars on things of motorcycling and non-motorcycling. We've had stargazing, things like that also. We also do, like we've talked about with we try to learn something about the ranches, because that's a big industry of this area. So we do this cowboy breakfast to visit a working ranch each year.